All right, hello and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a topic that's just absolutely fundamental to the health and, honestly, the survival of any organization here in Namibia. It doesn't matter if you're a small business, an NGO, or a public entity, we're talking about internal controls. So let me just start with a question for you. Is your organization really protected from the risks you can't even see? I'm talking about those internal threats, things like fraud, waste, or even simple human errors that can just quietly eat away at everything you've worked so hard to build. This is exactly why having a strong system of internal controls isn't just some nice-to-have corporate jargon. It is absolutely essential for survival. And look, the stakes are incredibly high. For so many small and medium-sized businesses right here in Namibia, a single fraud event can literally mean collapse. We're not just talking financially, but reputationally too. It's a harsh reality for sure, but really understanding this risk, that's the very first step toward protecting yourself. So, what exactly are internal controls? Let's break it down. At their core, they're simply the policies, the processes, and even the behaviors that you put in place to do three key things. First, to safeguard your assets. Second, to make sure your financial reporting is reliable. And third, to help you achieve your goals efficiently. And this is a great way to think about it. Imagine your organization is a building. Internal controls, they're the foundation. You don't see them every day, right? You probably don't even think about them when everything's running smoothly. But that invisible structure is what gives you stability. It's what allows you to build higher and grow stronger knowing you're secure. Okay, so how do you actually build this foundation the right way? Well, the good news is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a globally recognized blueprint for this, and it's called the COSO framework. It gives us a really clear, proven structure to follow. This framework is built on 5 key pillars that all work together as a system. First up, you've got the control environment. That's all about the ethical tone at the top. Then you do a risk assessment to figure out where are unique threats. Next, you create control activities. These are the specific policies and procedures you put in place. Then, information and communication ensures that clear and timely info gets to the right people. And finally, you have monitoring, which is basically checking regularly to make sure everything is actually working. You can see how a crack in any one of these pillars really weakens the whole structure. All right, now let's dig a little deeper into the types of controls you can use. You can think of them as 3 distinct layers of defense, and each one plays a really important part. First up, you've got your preventive controls. Their entire job is to stop problems before they can even start. A great example is requiring 2 signatures for all payments. It's all about being proactive, right? You're building a wall before there's even an attack. But look, no prevention is ever going to be 100% perfect. That's where your second layer comes in, detective controls. Their job is to find problems after they've already happened, so you can catch them early and minimize the damage. A classic example is doing your monthly bank reconciliations. You're trying to spot any strange transactions or errors right away, not, 6 months down the line when it's a huge mess. And that brings us to the final layer, corrective controls. So you've detected a problem, now what? These controls kick in to fix it. But here's the really crucial part. It's not just about patching up that one error. It's about asking why it happened in the first place, and then updating your procedures so that same weakness can't be exploited ever again. It's all about learning and continuous improvement. Okay, so let's bring all this theory back to the ground. What does this look like in the real world, right here in Namibia? Because, well, our local environment often leads to a very specific set of common weaknesses. Just take a look at this list of common gaps we see all the time in Namibia. Does any of this sound familiar? Insufficient segregation of duties, that's a classic, especially in smaller businesses where one person is wearing like 10 different hats. Weak procurement processes, vulnerabilities in handling cash, and here's a big one, over-relying on trust instead of having a solid process. That's a recipe for disaster when things eventually go wrong. Okay, so we've talked about the problems, but I really want to shift our focus now. Let's move from talking about risk to talking about resilience, because putting strong controls in place isn't a negative thing. It's actually one of the most positive, forward-thinking things you can possibly do for your organization. I mean, the benefits are just huge. Of course, strong controls help prevent fraud and waste, but they also make you more efficient. They make sure the data you're using to make big decisions is actually reliable. They help you stay compliant with bodies like NAMRA and the FIC. But maybe, just maybe, the most important thing is this. They help you build trust. And that's the most valuable asset you can have. Trust with your funders, your partners, and your customers. So let's just reframe how we think about all this. There's this common misconception that controls are all about restriction and red tape, but they're not. They are about freedom. They create that stable, secure framework that gives you the freedom to grow, to innovate, and to operate with confidence, because you know you're building something that's sustainable and trustworthy. So, the takeaway here is pretty simple. It's time to take an honest look at your own organization, assess your controls, find the gaps, and start strengthening them today. Even just putting one or two basic changes in place can dramatically reduce your risk. And hey, if you're not sure where to start, please don't hesitate to seek professional support. Think of it as an investment, not just in protection, but in the sustainable growth and the long-term future of your organization.